Hello, Wayne. Be very welcome. I'm really happy to have you with this interview today.
Aloha, Douglas. It's great to be with you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to our conversation.
So, Wayne, please tell us a little bit about yourself and your trajectory in the art of Jin Shin.
Well, it's a really wonderful story as far as I'm concerned. It began back in November of 1977 when I met Mary Burmeister, and that was my introduction to the art of Jin Shin. It was November the 14th of 1977. On a Monday morning, I walked into a classroom with 10 other students and began my study of the art. You know, I was at a place in my life, Douglas, where I was looking for something that would satisfy me, that would help me to feel, that would help my heart to smile, to be happy. And I'd left dental school. I did teaching in public schools for a short time, and I wasn't satisfied. And that desire, that burning desire to find my way, to find my reason for being, that brought me to Mary Burmeister on that really fortunate Monday morning. And then once upon, having met Mary, I very quickly realized when I met Mary Burmeister that I had finally found what I was looking for. There was something about her presence, unspoken and yet so powerful, this force, this attraction for me that really motivated me and compelled me to continue studying with her. After my first class, I invited Mary to come to Boulder, Colorado, where I was living. She accepted my invitation and began teaching a yearly class in Boulder. That was in 1978. And she did that until the end of Mary's teaching in 1990. So my biggest miracle early in my study of the art was an episode of appendicitis. And I've recounted this story often for students, telling you how I was in the hospital and the doctor said we need to do surgery. And I, through the message of the art and through Mary's teaching, I was encouraged to go home and see if the art of Jin Shin could alleviate this project, this pain of the appendicitis. Sure enough, it did. And that in 1980, 3 years after I began study, this was 1980, and that really convicted me. That said, okay, now let's really commit ourselves to the study. I opened a practice. I worked with family and friends, and before long, I had a good full practice in Boulder, Colorado. And also, with that 1980 experience, I decided, I want to be a teacher. I want to be able to share this message. It is so important. It is so big and so powerful. I want to share it. And so by 1987, finally, Mary accepted my request. Mary, please teach me. I want to share this message. And in 1987, she invited me, Philomena Dooley, Muriel Carlton, and Pamela Smith, the four of us, to begin an orientation, an apprenticeship, so that someday we could offer classes ourselves. And as you know, historically, in 1990, Mary fell, injured her head, and that injury prevented her from continuing teaching. And so those of us, the four of us who were involved with this orientation, we thought, all of a sudden we were pushed out into the world. And we were told, okay, Wayne, Mary can't come to Boulder, so you've got the Boulder class. And Philomena, you do the New Jersey class. And Muriel, you've got Tucson. And all of a sudden, we were instructors and presenting the art to the world around us. And then fortunately for me, Douglas, in my journey with the art, After my June of 1990 class, the first of my classes, I was living with a Brazilian woman, and Nilce invited me to bring the art of Jin Shin to Brazil. And in July of 1990, we offered our first training of the art in Brazil. In fact, we broke that first introductory class into two pieces. The first part in July, 4 days in July. And in November of 1990, I returned to do part two of the class. And that completed the first complete training of the art of Jin Shin in Brazil in 1990. After that, we've had yearly and sometimes 2 and 3 classes in Brazil, where I was so fortunate to come and be with our friends there in Brazil to continue our study and investigation of this magical mystery that we call the art of Jin Shin. At this point, you know, I believe Mary was the first person to take the art of Jin Shin outside of the United States when she went to Germany. I believe the class in Brazil was the second time that the art was taken to another country. So I'm really fortunate. I was really blessed and a huge honor to be able to make that first exploration, that first journey into Brazil. And moving quickly, covering 32 years that I've been teaching now, you know, Douglas, I've been so blessed, so fortunate, because I've had the opportunity to bring the art to Singapore. In fact, the first time the art went to the East, I was able to present that class in Singapore. I've been able to introduce the art of Jin Shin in Taiwan, in China. And the last class I taught before the pandemic, before the COVID situation, was to present the art of Jin Shin in Saudi Arabia. We had a wonderful class in Riyadh, and just confirmed for me again that we're all simply human beings who have the same desire to be happy, to be healthy, to help those that we love, to help ourselves. And the art of Jin Shin is such a perfect vehicle, such a perfect tool, regardless of your language or your culture or your belief systems or your philosophy. It is a philosophy for everyone. And I'm so blessed. I'm so fortunate that I get to share the message and see the lights come on in people's eyes. I see their eyes get bright with the light, with the illumination of the art. And that never loses its excitement. I continue to be thrilled with the experience. And I'm looking forward to, once again, getting on the airplane and bringing this message to the world.
That's great, Wayne. I think several art students comment that when you return to Brazil, they formed what they like to call Wayne's Caravan, and followed you to all the classes that you had scheduled in different states of Brazil. How was this feeling about the kindness of the dear being of the Brazilian people to you?
Well, for me, it was a feeling of not only welcome, Douglas, I had a feeling that I was with family. I had a feeling that I had a second home on the planet. And although I live in a very beautiful paradise here in Hawaii, I found a very beautiful paradise in Brazil as well. In the people, in the land, in the food, in the culture, in the music and the dance. Yeah, I feel so fortunate to have Brazil as a part of my history.
Giving this first Art of Jin Shin seminar in Brazil, you did support the training of the first generation of Brazilian students and instructors. How it was for you being a pioneer?
Well, again, the adventure of the study of the art, it's a constant state of pioneering. You know, we are constantly looking at new areas of life, new areas on the planet. So for me, it was simply to see the art as encompassing this new family I had in Brazil. And whether I was in Porto Alegre or Maceió or Sao Paulo or Rio, no matter where I was, Brasilia, we went. In all of these places, I wound up feeling my friends, my brothers and sisters in this family. And as I said, folks used to say to me, Wayne, you must have been Brazilian before, because the feeling was so familiar.
That's wonderful. We will have now our first break, and Wayne is going to share with us Mary quote, what Mary says. Moving back now.
You know, one of the messages from Mary Burmeister that continues to resonate is a message that I've heard and I've read for 45 years now. It's a message that's on page 1 of text 1, where Mary reminds us. And I say remind because when you hear the message, you know the truth from the inside. So it's remembering this truth. She tells us, the truth is that within each one of us lies the power to cast all misery aside, to know complete peace and oneness, to be a beautiful creation of harmony, and to truly know and help myself. This is the study of the art. And every time I remember those words, it excites me again to continue that investigation, that study, this bold adventure that we're living.
Now we are starting the second part of this interview, and we will start asking Wayne to tell us about your experiences with Mary.
Well, one of the first experiences I remember was from that very first day of my very first class. And we were applying the art, practicing on each other, working with each other. And I was applying the first step of the lung function energy on another student in the classroom. And I had my hand on the 14 and on the 22. And all of a sudden, this man's chest completely relaxed. And all of that big, full rounded chest let go. And he had a big exhale, a beautiful breath. And I was so excited at the incredible event that had just happened. And I looked up, and Mary was standing in the doorway, looking at me. She didn't say a word. She simply saw my excitement. She saw my wonder, my amazement. She looked at me, smiled, and walked away. She knew she had me. She knew I was a student of the art. That was one of my first Mary experiences. And that was often the way Mary would be with us. You know, a look from Mary was often worth 1,000 words. Other times you would see her, she would express her curiosity sometimes. Sometimes one of my favorite photos of Mary shows her in this posture where she was thinking. It was as though in class sometimes she would go on a little journey herself and go away, and then she would come back and she would share her vision with us. So Mary was an incredible teacher, just a beautiful example of the art. And to be with her in any situation was always an opportunity to learn. I had the blessing of having Mary in my home often. She would come and when she taught the Boulder class, She'd often join me for meals in my home. I would go with her to dinner when I'd visit her in Scottsdale. Another wonderful experience of Mary. So one time she took me to dinner to one of her favorite restaurants, and she was driving her new car. The boys, she called the boys, Dave and Mike. The boys just got me this new BMW, and it was a beautiful, new, shiny car. And as I was riding along, what Mary did was she laughed like a little child, and she said, "Look at all these lights." It wasn't the fancy name or the BMW label. What she liked were all the colored lights and how the dashboard would light up. And this little girl, this excited little girl, was so amused with all of the technology and the lights. So that was something else I appreciated about her. She helped us to enjoy. She told us we're here to be happy. We're here to enjoy, and to watch her enjoy the simple lights on a dashboard. That was good testimony for me. I had another experience with Mary where at one point I'd gone for my annual events in Scottsdale, where we'd get 10 days or 2 weeks of treatment twice a day and be with Mary very intensely. And it was on day 8 of one of those 10-day events that Mary left the treatment room, as she often did, without a word. And then she stuck her head back in the door and she said, "Good, now you're free of your past." Wow, that was, I really don't believe I can convey all of the enormity of that message, what that meant, because that went directly to my heart. It wasn't just to my head, it went right to my heart, and I knew exactly what she was talking about. I was born, I was new, I was free of the past. And those kinds of experiences were, many of us would get together and talk about, wow, what happened when I was with Mary today? Oh, what she said to me. Or it was just a constant time of being awed, amazed at what time with Mary brought for us, how it transformed our lives. And we were so grateful. I continue to be so grateful, because Mary, though she's no longer in her body, Mary is still my teacher. I hear her words, I feel her message, I feel her love, and the journey continues, Mary.
And with this wonderful comment that you just made to us, what's the art of Jin Shin to you? What would it be for you and for everybody, be the Jin Shin artist?
That's really a challenging question, and it probably has lots of answers, Douglas. The first thing that comes to me is a sense of trust. The art of Jin Shin is teaching me that I can trust myself. And when I can trust myself, I can trust other people. That's a very big piece. The art of Jin Shin also brings a sense of power and authority. It helps me at those times when each of us as human beings, at times in life, we feel intimidated or we feel like we're not up to the task in front of us. And the art of Jin Shin is always there to remind us that we can be, as that earlier quote reminded us, we have the power to make a difference in our lives and in the lives around us. That continues to be a constant message, and one that I will forever be grateful for having the ears to hear what she was saying in that moment.
The pandemic changed everything. How can the art of Jin Shin help the world right now at this moment?
You know, we've talked in other times in classes and webinars about COVID. We've looked at the numerological impact of COVID-19. We've looked at the message of the astrological story. And what I think most importantly about COVID is it's turned all of us inward. We've been distracted at times in the past with the world and its activities, and by being restricted in our movement, by being told that we can't go out into the world, it's turned us inward. And we've had time to stop, look, and listen, as Mary was so fond of reminding us. And that's one of the greatest gifts of COVID. What the art does is it gives folks not only flows that we can utilize to protect us from COVID or any other physical project, but it also supports us in the continuing journey of life. And so COVID, yeah, it's been a bump. It's created absolutely a whole new and different world. It's transformed the way we present the message in many ways. I think we don't even know yet all of the influence, all of the impact of COVID-19 on the planet. It's shown us that there's only one of us. We found new ways of being united. We found new ways of cooperating. We found new ways of sharing the art. And so while it's been challenging, I'm grateful for the innovation, for the revolution, the transformation that this project has created for all of us.
Now, Wayne, where did the idea from the Wayne's mantra comes from? How does you choose them? For example, for this year, 2022, be bold.
That's been a fun project for many years now, Douglas. Is what I like to do as we begin a new year. You know, it's a common thing to have a resolution, some idea about how we're going to be, how we're going to transform ourselves in the new year. And through the art of Jin Shin, through the study of number, through the study of the astrological information and how it pertains to our physiology, what I've done is I've used all of those influences to go inside, get quiet, and ask for a message that I can live, a message that I can be testimony to and for in the world. And so I consider number, planet, any number of things. And probably most importantly, I consider the inspiration that comes when I ask the question, what is my message so that I can be the best expression of Wayne this year, right now? How can I be bold? That's what came in 2022. The answer to that question was, be bold, Wayne. And then when I looked at the numerology, bold is a 33. 33 is the number that relates to the vertebra in our spine. 33 is the number that relates to the number of steps in the main central vertical, the major vertical supervisors, and the diagonal median. 33 steps. We have a lot of 33 in our journey. It's the anchor step of the diaphragm flow. It's the last step of the 15 flow. So when I heard 33, it began my message of be bold, sharing it with folks. And all year, I'll use that to remind me, to reinforce my behavior in a positive way. When challenges come, I'll be bold, and I'll go ahead and I'll take that step into the unknown, trusting that the art will carry me where I need to be. So those mantras are simply a yearly phrase that I use throughout the year based on the art's information, its philosophy, numbers, planets, and like I said, the inspiration that comes from the source. When you ask, you're going to get an answer to your question.
That's great. Now we are going for the second break, but before that, I want to invite our friends to make their comments, send their questions, because for us, I think the most important thing is to share the art and to be with them and please come talk to us, send your comments. That will be very, very grateful. Okay? See you in a minute.
And can we leave this with another quote from Mary?
Of course we can. Please.
Because as you're reminding me, Douglas, another quote that I really appreciate, Mary told us, if you're busy judging people, you have no time to love them. And we live in a world right now where we're being exposed to so many different kinds of people. Our job is to learn to be loving, not to be judging.
That's it. Thank you, Wayne. We are just moving back to the interview with Wayne Hackett, friends.
You know, Douglas, there's another quote of Mary's that's been a teacher for me throughout my entire journey with the art. And the quote says, there are no contradictions. There are only limited perceptions. And boy, that is, you know, such a good teacher for me, that message. And I witnessed it in my very first class with Mary, because, you know, what many of us do in the art is we come to the art of Jin Shin because of some physical project, and or someone we love has a project and we want to help. So we begin to study. And in that very first class, every time I would hear about some project, some condition needing help, I would write down, okay, do this for that. Do this for that. Okay, so come to talk about the lungs. And someone in the class asked early in the class, Mary, I've got a friend who has a lung project. What can I tell them to do? She said, tell them to hold their ring finger. I thought, oh, great. Now I know what to do for lung projects. Hold your ring finger. A little bit later, so I'm holding my ring finger and helping my lungs. And a little bit later, another day or so in the class, someone asked another question about the lungs. But this time they asked, Mary, my friend has pneumonia. What do I do? And I thought, oh, I know. Hold your ring finger, lungs, ring finger. And Mary said, tell them to hold their thumb and their index finger. And I thought, oh, I must have misunderstood earlier because I thought it was ring finger. So I erased ring finger. For lung projects, hold your thumb and your index finger. Great. Now I know what to do for the lungs. Good. A little bit later, someone asked about coughing. And I'm thinking, oh, hold your thumb, hold your index finger. And Mary told them to hold their middle finger. And I'm thinking, middle finger? Now, I'm sure I clearly heard you say, hold your thumb and your index finger. Nope. She said, hold the middle finger. So I'm thinking, all right, what's the right answer? Come on, lady, which is the right answer? And you know what? By the end of the week, I think it was the last day of that first class, she told someone who was having any breathing difficulty, tell them to hold their little finger. So I realized there are no wrong answers. There aren't right answers. There are relationships that the art of Jin Shin awakens us to. And every finger in my hand, both left and right hands, is related to my lungs at different levels of manifestation. And so that quote, there are no contradictions, there are only limited perceptions, was telling me I wasn't seeing the total picture. I wasn't seeing all of the relationships these lungs have and how each of the fingers can bring them in those lungs into a greater state of harmony and function.
And Wayne, it just remind me, talking about fingers, can you talk a little bit about this mudra, where it comes from?
Yes. Well, that's a very interesting synchronous kind of event that's happened, because in the world of signing internationally, what you see is this posture of the thumb, the index, and the little finger. And this is the way of saying, I love you to someone. You sign it if you can't speak it. Well, interestingly enough, in the art of Jin Shin, we know that everything can be harmonized through the fingers. Jiro Murai told us that one day, every label, every project will be harmonized through the fingers. In the art of Jin Shin, we know that all projects are born of fears that become attitudes that disharmonize the body. And again, interestingly enough, in releasing fear from the body, we learned this in self-help book number 1. We hold the thumb, we hold the index finger, and we hold the little finger. And in holding those 3 fingers, we release fears so that we can be the joy that we are. The creator in matter is laughter. So I really like that. Where there's love, there is no fear.
Now, I just want to ask you to repeat, please, when we are talking about your friends, how many instructors did Mary train with you in your generation?
Great, Douglas. Okay, and I'd like to give you a little introduction into Wayne's personal journey with the teaching story, because after I had that miraculous event with the appendicitis leaving my body, and by the way, I still have my appendix now 42 years later. But anyway, after that event, I wrote Mary a letter, a very heartfelt, difficult letter to write, because I wanted to say exactly how I was feeling. And I wanted her to know, Mary, I want to teach. And after writing and rewriting it several times, I finally mailed it to Mary, expecting that when she came to Boulder for the annual class, she and I would talk about my letter. Well, Mary came, spent the entire time of the class with me, and did not mention my letter. And I was kind of disappointed and thought, well, maybe next time. So she comes to Boulder again a year later. I'm sure I want to teach. And I finally get the courage to ask Mary during that class. We were together privately. I said, Mary, did you happen to receive a letter? Did you receive a letter from me that I wrote some time ago? I'll never forget. She was standing there. She had her purse over her shoulder, and she slapped the side of her purse saying, yes, it's here in my purse. And then she turned around and she walked away, said nothing more. So I want folks to know this was a part of Mary, right? This was at least the way Mary and I interacted. When she wanted to say something, she said it. If she didn't want to speak, she would go quietly away. Yeah. So I knew now was not the time. In 1987, David came to me and said, Wayne, I've got kind of an unusual message. Mary wants to talk to you about your letter. He said, do you know what she's talking about? And I said, yes, I know what she's talking about. 7 years later, she was finally ready to talk with me about my request, my desire. And so in 1987, with Philomena Dooley, Muriel Carlton, and Pamela Smith, the 4 of us began this training, this orientation, where we would spend very precious time with Mary. And she would share with us stories, what it was like to be with teacher. That's what she called Jiro. What it was like to be with teacher. She brought out a beautiful tapestry in which she had covered and wrapped his notes, a set of his notes. So beautiful. I can't tell you both her reverence and then the beauty of his notes. So incredible. Moments that I will always treasure. Now, Pamela decided not to be an instructor with us, and that left the 3 of us, Muriel, Philomena, and myself, to begin those early classes when Mary was no longer able to teach. And it wasn't, 2 or 3 years later that we began bringing others on into the faculty, and there were a series of, I think 3 or 4 joined the faculty at one point, and then 2 or 3 years later, 3 or 4 joined more. But Philomena Miro and I really had a very blessed, wonderful gift in being able to be a trinity to continue the journey and bringing Mary's and Jiro's message to the world.
Talking about messages, tell me, please, what would be daydream? What it look like to you? It's just open textbooks and...
Yeah, well, you know, that's a story I also enjoy telling folks, because I'm a Capricorn, and I really like that Capricorn mind, that logical, linear, you know, Saturn, the ruler of Capricorn, is the god of the rational mind. And so often I like my studies to be a very rational, linear process. And I'm reminded of one time when there was a student, a faculty member named Lynn Pfluger, who also journeyed to Brazil to teach. And Lynn was saying to Mary, "Oh, Mary, this study, the art of Jin Shin, is such a huge study. I don't know where to begin my journey, my studies." And Mary said to her, "What you do is you stand your textbook on its spine and let it open. And to whatever page it opens, you simply look at that information and you allow yourself to daydream, to ponder. You open your mind, you open your heart, and you allow yourself to hear and to feel whatever message comes in." So for me, as a Capricorn who likes to dig and claw and scratch and get all the details, I was hearing there's another way to be with this beautiful art. You can simply free yourself, free your mind, open your heart, stop, look, and listen, and study the art through a daydream. That was a wonderful, expanding moment for me to realize it's not just about my mind, it's about opening my heart, my imagination, my willingness to be open to the unexpected. Daydream.
Well, so open the imagination and keep moving on. How do you see the art of Jin Shin relationships with astrology, numerology, even with tarot?
Well, for me, it's a very simple answer, Douglas. You know, we are microcosms of the macrocosm. That means that every influence, every energetic expression that's there in the universe has its representative within me. I am a microcosm of all that's out there. And we have so many different systems for studying what's out there, you know. We do know that we have these heavenly bodies, these planets that share our journey around the sun. We do know that our universe, and part of our philosophy, teaches that everything in our worlds is connected and created by number and the process of numerical progression. So when you study number, or when you study planets, when you study the elements of life, we know that all of matter comes about because of the elements intermingling. Okay, so these are all simply aspects of our universe: planets, numbers, elements, colors, sounds, tastes, and smells. We are all of that. And the art of Jin Shin simply helps us to understand the story a little better when we investigate the message of the planets, the astrological signs, when we look at number and its function in our lives. And I would hasten to add, we don't look at astrology for prediction. We're looking at the message of the planets to give us insight into ourselves, into our behavior in this moment. You know, everything is moving. Everything is always moving, including those planets, including the movement through numbers. Every day we have a numerical change, a new number with which we're dealing. So these systems simply help us to understand nature. That's another way I like to consider studying the art of Jin Shin. I like to take a walk. I live in a really beautiful place, and we all do. We all have a paradise to share. And I like to take a walk and learn about the art of Jin Shin from the trees, or from the animals that I meet along the way, or for the way the weather changes. The art of Jin Shin is the study of life in nature, what it means to be in nature. And so that's why all of these different systems. Music, there's another incredible way of understanding the art of Jin Shin: sound, vibration. Probably the thing I most enjoy, Douglas, one of the things I most enjoy about the study of the art is it's inclusive. And no matter what I'm drawn to in the moment, if I'm thinking about color, color is a vibration. I'm an energetic being having a physical experience, Mary Burmeister. And so this energetic being that I am is impacted by all manner of vibration, whether it's a color or a sound or a planet or a number, and on and on and on. We are constantly being impacted by these invisible forces. So to study them, to get to be a little more familiar with how they function, who they are, and what they provide, this gives us great insight into who I am.
And about movement and vibration, about this new age of Aquarius, what can you tell us?
Be bold, Douglas. Aquarius is about invention, and invention requires boldness. We are now fully engaged, I feel, with the Aquarian age. And it's simply an age of invention. Who of us can deny that we've been transformed in this world? Everything is changing, and it continues to change rapidly. Aquarius is involved with the technical world, with the invention of cyberspace and the internet and webinars. It's involved with energy. And maybe one of Aquarius's greatest gifts is it surprises us. It brings unexpected events to open our eyes to the magic and the mystery and the wonder of life. Aquarius says, see the same thing with new eyes, and we get new ways of participating in life. So this is very exciting to be alive at this very important time on the planet, after leaving the age of Pisces, where we were believers. Now we can say in Aquarius, I know. And the art brings us to knowing. That was, strikes me as really amusing and amazing that Mary used that word a lot, to know. The art of knowing myself, get to know and help myself. And Aquarius simply says, I know. So she was preparing us for this new world, this new age, with all of its invention, with all of its revolution, with all of its unexpected surprise. She was telling us we have this great philosophy, this art of Jin Shin, that will help us to fully engage with the Aquarian world.
Great way. Well, tell us about the place that we have in Hawaii. This retreat, how does it work? Tell us about Wayne's place in Hawaii.
Well, again, I've got to be the luckiest guy ever born, because I've had such a great, not only 70 years of life, but I've had wonderful places to live my life. And I lived for many years in Boulder, Colorado. I was there when I met Mary. And I left Boulder, Colorado to move to Hawaii in 2001. So I moved from the mountains to the sea. And all the while, Douglas, in my journey, I was just counting last night, I've now visited 22 different countries, sharing the art around the world. And it's always good to come back to Kauai. It is my home. It's where my heart feels so peaceful and happy and satisfied. And it's known as the Garden Island. And I've been blessed again with a beautiful home, and I like sharing it. I like sharing my home. I like sharing the art with people. So some years ago, we began an adventure, a project of offering retreats where students come to live with me. We literally live together in my home. We share meals. We study together. We put our hands on each other. We take walks in nature. We go to the beach, and we spend time living together, living a Jin Shin life. And that's what these retreats are all about. They're very small. I like doing them with 5 other students, myself and 5 other students. I've done it on occasion with Carlos or with Muriel, where we'll do 10 students, but it's still a process of a small group, very intimate. And when you live the art, when you wake up and you have the art of Jin Shin in your life over coffee and breakfast, when you can share your dreams, when you can share your self-help and what happened when I gave myself this flow, and then you come together and you study, and twice a day you give and receive treatment. It's been very, very successful. Students have loved it and some have come back. Now, the COVID situation put a postponement to these retreats because of the restriction of travel, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm looking forward to resuming the retreats. They're really fun. And I'm hoping that next year we can go back into these events. You know, I've had folks come from China. I've had folks come from Europe, Americans certainly. And so maybe we can get a group of Brazilians to come and join us and have a fun time here in Hawaii. That's what I'm looking forward to. Now, sometimes folks get together and they organize their own group of 5. Other times folks have said, I'd like to join a group. Is there a group that I could join? And they communicate with me and I help them to find a group to play with. What I know is the group that arrives, the group that studies with me and I with them, because you really learn that everyone's your teacher in these kinds of events. And what I've learned through these various retreat situations is that the group that comes together is always perfect. Always perfect. And whether they've created their own group or someone gets invited to join another group, you live together, you learn together, you laugh together, and it's always a perfect situation. Yeah. So that's another one of Mary's quotes that I really like, Douglas. Perfect imperfection. She quotes Ralph Waldo Emerson, the American writer, who said, I, the imperfect, adore my own perfection. And that's really, for me, a gift in the art, because we learn to love ourselves as we are, perfectly imperfect. That's the state of being human, perfect imperfection. And having these events is always perfect. It's always perfect.
I know there is much, much more to talk about, but I understand that you have a new project that's almost ready to open, the Guild, a new way to present online classes. But I know that it will be a challenge for you, but that's a subject for another interview. But just right now, give us just a bit of that, just a taste, Wayne.
Well, the art of Jin Shin will be presented to the world through a new association called the Jin Shin Guild. And the Jin Shin Guild is simply a collective, it's a cooperation, a cooperative of artisans, of students who are studying the teaching of Jeremiah and Mary Burmeister. And Carlos Gutierrez and myself, my good buddy Carlos, decided that we wanted to find a new expression, a new way of presenting the message in this new world of ours. And so we are founding members of what we call the Jin Shin Guild. And yes, you'll be hearing about us very soon. We'll be launching our website and soon offering our classes. And it's a very exciting new project.
I know that will be a great success. Well, we'll be waiting and we can make another interview for that.
Yeah, I think I'd really like to have time, Douglas, where Carlos and I can share our excitement, our vision, our enthusiasm, and our desire to have folks join us in this grand project.
Well, for now, that's it, Wayne. I really want to thank you. Thank you very much, my friend, to be with me.
Muito obrigado por você.
Yes, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. See you next time, huh?
Yes, and we can see our friends in the next time. So thank you to everybody who is watching our videos, and be very welcome to share your comments with us. Thank you so much for being part of this journey. The journey continues, as Mary says.
Yes, Douglas, I really want to say to our friends out there who have been with us for this, or who will see this maybe later as a recording, we welcome your participation. And in fact, I really want to say, I desire deeply your being a part of this outreach. However you express your version of the art, there is only truth, there is only love, there is only one of us. And join us in this incredible new way of being united through the art of Jin Shin.
There is the art of Jin Shin, so be the artist. Wayne, this is the most important question that I have to make to you. Oh. What this issue about shirts and tie? Can you tell me?
Well, yeah, that's sort of one of Wayne's signature marks. You know, I really enjoy color. Life is so colorful, Douglas. And as a Capricorn, I like tradition, you know, and I was raised that if you really respect something, if it's important to you, you dress, and your appearance lets the world know of your respect, of your admiration for whatever it is you're participating in. So, of course, for me, it was simply a matter of finding a tie that would allow that respect to be expressed, but it had to be a fun tie. I wanted to see fingers or happy hearts, or I wanted to see children laughing. You know, I went to a birthday party for Mary, her 80th birthday, and I wore a tie that had many children laughing and smiling. She loved it. Yeah. So while I wear the tie as a sign of respect, I also wear it to remind you to laugh, to remind those who are listening to this message of the art. We've got these hands, we've got a big heart, we've got all that we need. We've got these numbers to play with. Some of my ties have numbers. So there's a message in the tie, but mostly it's a reminder to smile, to be grateful. You know, Douglas, when we live in gratitude, there's no room for fear. When you're finding something for which you can say thank you, there's no room for fear in that. And so I wear these ties, I wear these clothes and the bright, colorful things sometimes simply as a way to get us to stop and remember all that we've been given, to be grateful for, and to show our gratitude through our self-expression.
So thanks God for shirts and ties.
Graças a Deus, meu Deus, yes.
Gratitude and laugh. That's it. That's us.
Yes. Or as I learned, pelo amor de Deus. This is another one of my favorite Brazilians.
Yes, that's wonderful. Thank you very much, Wayne. So thank you very much, and love for you.
and all, for love for everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Aloha.